tip.
Good afternoon. It is February 26, 2024. You're listening to a Little Column A, Little Column B, hosted by Will Limonos and co-hosted by Zach Bishop. How are you doing today, buddy?
What is going on, Will? Have to bring something up. We haven't talked about it in a while, but records, basketball records. A Texas man broke the record for a half marathon while dribbling a basketball. Is he the best basketball player in his group, or is he the worst basketball player in his group?
I don't think he's very good. Is that bad? My first assumption is well, if you really like basketball and you're really good at basketball, you'd be playing basketball. You wouldn't be doing some sort of alternative. Now, that's not to say you can't be a multi-sport athlete. There's pickup ball. It's not all fully committed, strictly basketball guys. You get a couple football players, ex-players of some other sports. So I'm not saying he doesn't belong here. If you're asking me my first impression on it, it sounds like he's a lot better at running than dribbling a basketball. I don't know if I'd want to do this for that long. Do you think running is easier by dribbling, or is this? It seems like an obstacle.
Oh, it's definitely a challenge. I just wonder if it makes it you have something to focus on, and rather than just running, it's like, okay, you're dribbling a basketball, and then maybe you think it's cooler than, oh, well, these people, they're just runners, but I'm kind of a basketball player. He ran really fast, average pace of 6 minutes 14 seconds. So he's cruising with a basketball, and I think you play basketball. You're always told you're faster without the ball, and there's very few guys that are even close to the same speed with the ball. But I agree with you saying, hey, if this guy is dribbling and running for this long, all that training, that's time you could be in the gym playing basketball. So I've played basketball. I played basketball with an Ironman guy. And he was very strong, and even when he was training, he would say, basketball, that up and down, the quick cuts, it's just totally different than the endurance. So maybe it's strong to say he's the worst one in his group, but I would think, this is a little more of a circus act than, hey, do you know Jerry? Yeah, the guy we pick up with all the time is really good. Yeah, dude, he just ran a half marathon. I don't think that was the case.
This is already information we probably don't have, but do you think he must have dribbled with both hands, right? He didn't go the whole way with the right hand. You had to have used the left, right? You just had to.
You must have, just otherwise you just get bored.
I want to.
I think here's the better question. Okay, you're dribbling with your right hand. Is it kind of free form, and sometimes you're dribbling with the other hand? And he's cruising 6 minute miles. Because I'm thinking, if I'm out there, I'm not. I guess he's really trying to set the record. But if I'm dribbling, I'm crossing over. I'm doing spin moves. I'm doing all sorts of. I'm just getting wild out there.
Do you think he could make a business out of all of this? That by the time you finish the marathon, you'll actually be able to dribble with your left hand. Can we just sign Jaylen Brown up for this? Do you think one or two marathons and then he'll have a left hand, or how many miles do you think it'll take before he'll learn to dribble with his left hand?
I don't think that this would be the correct strategy to improve your left hand. I think it would, but I think there are going to be much better drills and exercises that you can do to improve your left hand.
I was trying so hard to force that joke in there. I really just want. Every time I think of somebody struggling dribbling, he's the first example that comes into my head. It's terrible. It's a gift and a curse because Simmons calls it a 90-10 thing where he's 90% perfect, and there's this quirky 10% that just sometimes dribbles off his foot or his knee or whatever silliness, and it's bad that I keep remembering him for that. But there's other things in basketball that I'm remembering for different reasons, some for fun, some not for so much fun. And the court storming throughout college basketball has been a controversial opinion of mine for forever, and I think you're going to immediately come out and say, well, I've always been against it, and I just want to reiterate that it's not that I've been against it. It's that I think we need to have a little bit more structure on who qualifies to be able to actually court storm. I don't think every school has the right to do it. I think if you're an established program, you don't ever get to run a court storm. If you won a championship within the last 10 years, you don't ever get to court storm. Now, I think establishing these sort of rules lowers the amount of them, and thus you'll have less sort of circumstances like happened this past week where another player, a quote-unquote star player in your words, was hit and made contact with after a loss during it. I have a solution for this as well. the court storming, seeing how we're never going to be able to get rid of it. I already know you're going to bring that argument. Like, we can't get rid of it. Like, we've already tried the security. We've already done all of this. I think certain games that I think qualify for the court storm, it's almost like when you lose, it has to be like a fire drill. Like, your team has to just get off the court. Like, you can't just be where he was, where he took his time getting off, and then you're in the mess. You just can't put someone in that situation. It's like, well, maybe we could slow the crowd down. Like, good luck. You're not going to be able to do that. If anything, let's speed the players up. It's like, if you guys truly want to be safe, it's like a fire drill. You lose the game. It sucks. You got to get over it. You got to get off. Got to get off the court. I can't think of any other way to really compromise this without saying we can't do it anymore. But if we are going to do it, maybe let's give certain teams that too many people feel like they have the right to do it because everybody wants to do it. And that's a totally normal college thing. But I just don't think every school is truly deserving of having the right to do it and should be able to do it. So lower the amount of them, and let's practice it like a fire drill, and we won't have cases like this anymore. Or if we do, we'll have far, far less, because we've already had the Caitlin Clark thing and now the Filipowski thing, and it seems like it's getting a little bit more momentum, and I don't know where we go from here. But I imagine you have always been pro-court storming, are now at the other end of some of the consequences of this. How are you feeling about it? Have I converted you? Or are you still all for it?
Absolutely not on your side. Not even close. Not even close. There were multiple court storms last week. UConn, they got beat at Creighton. They got destroyed at Creighton. Court storm. LSU, on a last-second miracle shot, beat Kentucky. Also a court storm. And everybody liked it. It always leads SportsCenter. It's very popular. You're mentioning, hey, we got to come up with rules for this. Kind of the whole thing is that you're breaking the rules. And especially for rules breakers, I mean, college kids are right up at the top of, they don't have to pay the fine. In the ACC, there actually isn't a fine. In the SEC, I just found out recently that it's not a fine, not just that you pay a fine, you have to pay the fine to the other school, which I thought that was an interesting wrinkle. So each conference kind of has different rules. But I think the issue was this specific court storm where Flip, you said, fire drill, you got to get off the court. All right. I don't think that he was lingering out there. There are multiple pictures going around that the fans were on the court before the game ended. Now, there was a game earlier this week, I'm trying to think, where this also happened, and it was close, where it wasn't sure if the basket had gone in. So it really could have been a huge issue. It turned out, it was fine. But I think that is the issue right there, is that it's not about following these, because I, in general, agree that there are certain schools, Duke doesn't court storm. They rush the field in football. It's just different levels. And I think it's difficult to exactly put your finger on what the rules are. Because I think you said, if you haven't won a championship, or if you've won a championship in the past 10 years, all right, that seems like generally okay. But there's different schools that, okay, after that, you just fell off a cliff, and you've been terrible for 7 years, and then you have one good year, and then it's against the number one team in the country, and it was a buzzer beater. I think you can get all sorts of nitpicky with the rules, and the college kids are never going to follow it. The problem with this one was that Wake was not prepared at all, security-wise. Because, like I said, we just saw a couple of these court storms recently. Creighton did a pretty good job. Other schools do better or worse, where they're not trying to stop the fans, because I know you can't stop them, but you can at least direct them out of the way. And it's like, okay, you said it kind of goes a little bit with your fire drill. Is, all right, you get over by the team section so the players keep going, and I think most fans get it. And most fans aren't looking to go up at the other team. I think Duke just takes people to another level. I mentioned it a couple podcasts ago that it's like when I'm watching Duke basketball, I'm a different person, especially when it's UNC. And I am sure, fan is short for fanatics. This is what Jalen Rose says all the time. And I think it's just, you get one or two bad apples, and I don't think that should ruin it for everybody. Despite what, Duke, as a whole fan, I am very much in my own little bubble here. They are big mad.
I understand why you should be mad, but the idea that it's a case by case situation and it doesn't happen a whole often, and that there was anything they could have done to prevent it, it's like there's really not. I think, I almost feel like you're at fault for not getting off the court at this point. They're gonna come early. And we say this all the time. If you don't want to be in the situation, you know what you got to do?
You got to win.
Just win the game. Exactly.
You got to win. And there's a certain level, and the news hasn't come out all the way. Just before the podcast, I saw just a headline that said, Flip still sore, status is uncertain for Wednesday. So if he gets hurt, this is only going to get worse for just everything. But ideally, it's like, hey, you got ran into, wasn't expecting it. It's not good by any stretch, but it's like, all right, we can all move on from this. But if there is a little bit of, hey, you know why we really need to win this game? Because we want to keep all these fans in their seats. The similar of when you're on the road and you hit a big shot and the whole crowd goes silent and certain players saying, I like that more than playing at home. This sort of thing of, yep, you guys thought you were going to come and get an upset today? Nope. And, well, actually, that's something else that should be brought up. Now that sports gambling is much more illegal and people are more aware of it, it's not as hidden as it was even just a few years ago. Duke wasn't favored to win that game. They were a 2.5-point underdog. So you're mentioning the Storm rules.
This is a great example.
You won. You covered the spread by 1.5 points, and so it wasn't an upset.
I think that's another reason to say that we have to be able to cut this down. What do they come out with, like rankings once a week? Like, what if every once a week they told you, like, these are the games with a potential court storm, and it was almost like bulletin board material where your team is at jeopardy of, like, hey guys, if we blow this one, they're coming on the court. Like, we've already greenlit it. Like, the only way they don't is if we win. So, like, is that not good TV? Is that not good entertainment? If it was kind of pre-announced almost before, because the wildness of it all is actually kind of the recklessness of, like you said, is almost negligence of them thinking like there's no scenario where this might happen and that they're so unprepared for it. Like, maybe we should go into every game thinking like, hey, anything can happen to these college games, which is why I'm going to yell at you for the next thing of talking me into this goddamn sport. Michigan State lost again. It was a buzzer beater. It was brutal. I felt all of the pain you mentioned all of the last couple of weeks of the UNC Duke nonsense. It all built up into one thing of like, why do I like this thing? All it does is give me pain. There's no joy in any of this anymore. It's just suffering and inconsistency, and I can't stand Michigan. I can't stand the Izzo hate at this point. It's hard to defend when it seems like everyone's really pissed off at him and that the team is just underachieving, and the only thing that we have on our side are these goddamn numbers that don't make any sense. Like, the eye test is so bad, and yet somehow KenPom, like, this is one of the few years where I've really watched all of the games. Like, I've been committed. I've been watching regular nights, and I haven't just been watching the big games. I've been watching all of them. Any close game, any weeknight, weekend night, it's every night I've been watching them. And there's been years of the past where I've kind of cheated, done a little late cram, because it's like everything goes up and down, fluctuates so much around the season that you're kind of better off just seeing how does it all end up right around right now and just cram all the knowledge you can. But this would have been a year where if I wasn't watching, I would have been like, wow, look at Michigan State, still in that like top 25 KenPom and not really connecting a whole lot of wins. And what a sneaky team. I'm here to tell you I've watched all of their games. This is not a sneaky team. This is a bad team. And if they don't pull off the miracle of beating Purdue this week, which is really the only chance I have of making any momentum for them, because even if they do that, I still see them eventually just bouncing back to the floor that they hit so frequently this season. I can't believe you talked me into all this sports. These kids, these inconsistencies, the mistakes that they make, it's so brutal. It's awful to gamble on, and it's really hard to root for. It's all over the place. I'm new to all this. This is perhaps suffering that you have been well adjusted to and yet still are working on. Do you have any advice for me?
Well, I just want to go back to your storm idea. We're getting towards the end of the year, but I think maybe we should do that. We should be the ones on the podcast. We'll come out with a storm warning, and it'll fluctuate each week on how many we're expecting, and then we can kind of track ourselves and see, was the game close? Did it result in a storm? And you'll play a little weatherman here.
Maybe. I'd also more rather hand out the disciplining of being like, hey, you guys, like the Wake Forest one, it's a borderline one. I still kind of consider them a basketball school. I've heard of them because of basketball. They have a lot of successful NBA players that are superior to a lot of other schools. That still adds up to them not being the best basketball program. But they were favored this game too. Like that, it's tricky. It's hard to really draw a line. I think you could argue so many other times
But
as well as
you knew they were going to storm.
yeah. No, I did.
I found a little stat for you before we get over to the Michigan State stuff. When Duke loses on the road, they get stormed 73% of the time, and that has got to be some sort of like in the modern era. And I don't even know if that means when we had the down year during COVID, if there were just no fans. So if that played or if they took those out, but I mean, basically 3/4 of the time. That's a lot of the time. So I take it as a sign of respect. You know, when they stop storming us, that's when I have to be concerned. But to your Michigan State point, you seem like you're down, and I always try, as a fan, and it's way harder in college. But never too high, never too low. The past couple of weeks, you're inching up. You're inching up. You guys were knocking on the door to get ranked, knocking on the door, and then just 2 games in a row. I still don't know how that guy hit that 3 at the buzzer. You were draped all over him, but this is how you got to think about it. Izzo has been doing this for a long time. You set the expectations at a certain level. Now, it's only February. Next week, before next week, it will be March. That's when Izzo thrives. He doesn't want the bar getting set too high. You're ranked, all of a sudden, expectations are a little bit different. He brings those expectations down, and now all of a sudden, you're going to go into the tournament and you're going to be a 10 seed? Oh, man. All of a sudden, you're favored against the 7, so you beat the 7, and now you're going against the 2. All you need is then to have a close matchup there, and then if you pull that off, Sweet 16, everybody's happy. Everybody in Michigan State land, very happy.
I would be happy if I had just not watched the season then. Let me just skip to the finale. The season's too hard. It's too much of a roller coaster. Especially a team this year where would we come in 4th ranked, top 5? They were a high ranked.
Yeah, you're number 4.
I don't think that we looked like a 4 seed at all this year, and that's way more concerning.
Sometimes. I mean, anytime you go, usually there's got to be numbers on this, but 75% of the AP preseason stays in the the top 25. I don't know what the numbers are. I'm sure there's got to be something like that. But it was last year. UNC started at number 1, and then they didn't even make the tournament. So this happens occasionally, but I think more often than not, if you start as the number 4 team, you're going to stay at least in the top 25. So I think this was just unusual, and yeah, the metrics. They're still a fan, so I still think that there's something in there that can turn around, and all you gotta do is get hot in March. Whether it's I doubt it'll be in the Big Ten tournament, just because I don't think that Izzo really makes that a priority compared to the big dance. But yeah, you never know.
I think we're gonna take down Purdue on Saturday. Like that's gonna be it. That's gonna be the forget Illinois. Let's make up for everything. This is a prayer of hoping that we're just the more desperate team at a more desperate time. And
this was a rough week for you and your predictions. You said that Miami was going to upset Duke, and Duke won by 30, and you thought that UConn was going to destroy Creighton, and Creighton destroyed UConn on top of the Michigan State stuff. So I'm hoping last week was just a blip, and you can get back on your winning ways.
Well, that's the one I feel the least confident about of Michigan State taking off. I do have other games, but before we get to some of those games, let's talk a little bit about some of the past games here. And the white suit on the sideline of Rick Pitino and St. John's, who sneaks out a win and just keeps the train going.
I don't even think they snuck out a win. They were up double digits, like almost the whole time. They just kind of held them at arm's length. I think at one point Creighton might have cut it to 5, but I think Creighton had that huge win, and then they thought, yeah, we're gonna have a fun New York City trip. And Slick Rick in the whiteout, and did you hear the backstory? His old white suit from back in the day, it didn't fit anymore. He had to go talk to the tailor. The tailor said, hey, shop's closed, and he begged him, and the guy made it happen for him. Rick's got to be comfortable, and we just found out recently that, well, not this part, but we knew that the Big East tournament is at MSG. It's always been at MSG. That the St. John's games that's where they play like half their home games. But during the tournament, those are going to count as home games for them, not as neutral site games, which is going to make it more difficult because it's not too hard to travel to New York, and especially if they're playing UConn, Connecticut's not that far away. They're gonna definitely show up. So you're gonna have to play this neutral slash maybe away environment, but the metrics are gonna count it as a home, and they I think still need a couple of big victories. But boy, was this a step in the right direction after last week. We didn't bring it up, but he had really slammed his players. But got a win at against Georgetown, and now this Creighton win, probably the biggest of the season.
So it was all worth it, right? It's good coaching now. Now that they got a big win, it's good coaching. Like this is the whole Izzo thing. We're going to be all over him all week here. It's been awful on the social media things. I follow way too many Michigan State podcasts and YouTube stuff, and boy, man, this was you think I'm not nearly as distraught as some of those people who are already coming for his head. Like, it's been too long. We're not doing the adjustments. We didn't do the recruiting. We don't do any transfers. And it's like, well, wow. It's just, I thought we still had Izzo. Like, I didn't realize we needed all of that. Like, can we stand up for ourselves like a little bit here? It's been a rough year, but I maybe they'll have a tribute for him next year, like some of these other guys, like Boeheim. We haven't really discussed this directly, but he was fired last year, was he not? Like, in reality, like he was let go, and to have like a really quick tribute the next year,
it was for sure weird.
And for him to kind of act like everything's all right. And the other weird thing is that they are way better this year than they have been of the last like 5 years. So it just seemed like I'm not upset over the situation. As long as they're all happy, they're happy. I just thought it was a weird timing thing, and that wasn't the only timing thing. The Caitlin Clark thing you brought up too, with her logo on there. Like, are we doing these things too quick, or do we like that we're not really doing the politics of thinking about this and who has the right to do it and just doing it? Because it's going to happen eventually. It's like we can either say yes now or we could say yes inevitably. It just seemed the timeline was just a little strange. Are we doing this too fast?
The Jim Boeheim one snuck up on me. It doesn't super surprise me, just because it's a very much a Syracuse heavy topic. So even though playing in the ACC just didn't come across my radar until they were doing that, but I could see maybe there's a sense of urgency. He is not a young man, so making sure like, hey, let's do this while he's able to remember this, and this is going to be a good thing. But does seem quick, where it was just it's not even a year since, like you said, was it a firing? Did he what exactly happened? So I'm kind of surprised that he even wanted to come back, but maybe it was at the time he was just frustrated by the season, by a couple of rough seasons. And so, we always say these endings never are good. They're always rough. So maybe just like a little bit of a distance. He's announcing ACC games now, seems to be enjoying himself. So maybe that's why it was a little sooner than we might have thought. But I do think that the Caitlin Clark, what are we calling it? A decal, a spot on the floor. So the arena put Clark and her number, and they put it right where she hit the shot to set the women's points record. I think the idea of putting different tributes on the court is very cool. I think more arenas should do that. I think this one works out really well because it's not near anything else because it was so deep. But that only happened like a couple of weeks ago. I mean, couldn't we have waited till next year? It just seemed like the perfect opportunity for next year to have Caitlin Clark Day, and they unveil it before the game, and she's able to to be in attendance, and there's like a little fanfare, and it's a bunch of fun. Where there's already fanfare because Caitlin Clark is still there, and almost every game I'm seeing on X before the game, the line of people, whether it's home or away, all the way around the building, down the block, wherever they are, of people in line waiting to get tickets. But it really reminds me of that Kirk Goldsberry picture that you have, that is just like a mix of a outdoors map and all the places where cool basketball stuff happened, and he all intertwines it together. And I just think it would be cool if more courts had that, whether it was buzzer beaters, major milestones like this, I think that would be very cool and just add more to this.
It's deserving. It's more again the timetable of it all, and the reason of like I'm not sure why they felt the need for this to rush. And with all respect to the college, she's a really big deal, and she's not going to be there forever, and you're going to have a hard time ever replacing her. And these sort of tributes give you like an extension off of it where you can bring it back for a day or a night, and to choose not to do that just seemed a little suspicious. Again, it's not like she doesn't deserve it, and that like she didn't have it. Like nobody's saying this is wrong. Like this is fine. She set the record. It's a cool idea. It just seems like a missed money opportunity almost for them for next year. And
yeah,
I don't know many businesses that would have chosen to go this way, but I guess it's some credit to not really thinking about the money of it. I just what are we doing this for? We're doing this to have feel good moments, I guess. We'll pay for the intuitions with all that. It's fine. It's just money over here. All right, games to look forward to. What do you got this week?
For this week, tomorrow, Tuesday night, we have Kentucky at Mississippi State. Yeah, I'm sure you're watching these games. I can't quite figure it out. They had a rough stretch at home, and then they were going to Auburn, and it was looking like this is not going to be good. 9.5-point underdogs. Auburn had game day. It just these guys are partying all day, getting all hyped up, and then Kentucky walks in and just smacks them around. Coach Cal does a little victory tour afterwards. This straw man argument about how no one believed in him and the team, and just really peacocking. And then they get upset by LSU. Oh, well, that's not great. And then it's like, oh, well, I thought Alabama was going to be the hard game, of this week, not LSU. And then they come out and they absolutely destroy Alabama. So Mississippi State, they're not ranked, but they are they're a tough team. It's going to be at Mississippi State, and I'm just wondering which team shows up. Is it the Kentucky team that puts up over 100 points and looks like, like the most efficient team in the whole country, or that the team where they can barely get into the 70s and they can't stop anybody on defense? So
do you have any
to see which team shows up?
Do you have any other SEC games?
2 more.
All right, go for them. I got an SEC take. If you got more games, I'll talk more about them.
Okay, yeah, I got 2 more. Actually, Tennessee on here twice. Wednesday, Auburn is at Tennessee, and then on Saturday, Tennessee's at Alabama. So Tennessee is in for I guess it could be a really good week or a rough week, but those 2 games both could be really good. And then also on Saturday, Big Ten, Illinois at Wisconsin. I think that's going to be a really good one.
I don't think the SEC is the best conference, but I think it's the most competitive. So, like, if you want to disrespect Kentucky, I think you're basically saying you don't think Auburn or Tennessee is that good either, because I think they're all on the right day are right there. And I don't think you could argue. I think it's silly to argue one over another at this point. I think it's just it may be not the best conference, but I think this is a really tight one. And I could see even teams like Florida sneaking up pretty regularly where they get hot and they could just score a whole bunch of offense. Mississippi State, as you mentioned. I like a lot of these teams, but I think there's days where we go in being like, well, I guess Auburn's the real good one and Kentucky's not. And it's like the next night it's like, well, maybe not. Maybe it's the other way around. So I'm still kind of analyzing my rankings of the conferences right now. It's hard to pick a steady hand when I said like it's just really competitive. So
I agree with you, and I am excited but apprehensive. Where it's less than a week, it's going to be March. So like the season is getting towards the end, but we're getting close to conference tournament time, and I'm looking at their projected end of season standings on KenPom, and right now it goes Alabama, Tennessee, Auburn, South Carolina. The first 4 get the double bye, so that means you're going to have ranked Kentucky and ranked Florida, if this all holds, that are going to have to play like I'm going to call it like the early game, and these are ranked teams before so. You're going to be fighting tooth and nail just to try to get up into those top 4 seeds, so you don't have to play the extra game, because you're going to have to play in the conference tournament. You play every day, so it doesn't get brought up as much because NBA it's throughout the season where it's only conference tournament time that college teams play back to back, and yep, they're for sure super young, but just kind of figuring that out. So yeah, I think that conference tournament is gonna be a lot of fun.
My other take is that the Big Ten's the worst, the weakest one. You can have your Purdue's, your Illinois, your Michigan State, whatever. It's fine. Not impressed. Even
That is interesting.
even the Big East with Solo kind of Connecticut and Creighton and Marquette kind of sneaking in there. But we've seen them look hot and cold a couple nights. But I think the really only steady team I've seen the whole year, and even they've had some vulnerabilities, has been Houston. I think Connecticut's got a hell of a punch. I can't buy into Arizona, and yet if I lost to them, I wouldn't feel that bad. But I don't feel
they just
great.
got upset last week too.
I don't feel great picking them either. Like they don't look like they've really won the games they're supposed to win. I mean, the problem is none of these teams are going to really be the adult in the room. All right, they're all kids. Like any of these teams, you see the vulnerabilities happen every night. But I worry a little bit about the SEC, as you said, getting a little depth in there, and some maybe not getting the preference of buys of all that. But I think any one of those teams, even in the situations they ended, I think will be very, very dangerous in March. Just because I think this has been an ultra competitive conference this year of who's on top, who's king of the court, changes every other week. And I think it's going to continue to change.
And this is, it's unfortunate, but we do this all the time in sports where if the SEC gets a lot of teams in and they all make pretty good runs, it's, oh, well, look how competitive their conference was. But if they don't, it's just it's gonna be the same line that we've talked about with the Big Ten in the past of, oh well, they are really good, but they just beat up on each other for 3 months, and by the time they get to the tournament, they're worn out. So, are you battle tested or are you worn out? And we just always do it in reverse.
I got a couple other games I wrote down here.
All right, what do you got?
I got a big week for Kansas. I think they're going to take care of business against BYU tomorrow night, Tuesday. But I think they're in for some trouble against Baylor on Saturday. Baylor, that Baylor, it was a Baylor-Houston this past week where it was like Houston had a real big run, and then Baylor came back and just a second half momentum at all, made a real game out of it, and then Houston being able to deliver blows, take a couple punches, and still really finish it out.
Right. That was Saturday. That went to overtime.
I was very impressed by both teams because, when you're down and then when the other team comes back, it didn't seem like either team really panicked, and that's impressive in a moment like this. When you're down by double digits at home and then you just come back and get into it, that's impressive by Baylor. But then for Houston to kind of keep the composure after blowing the lead on the road and take care of business in overtime, I really just thought that was an impressive win by Houston and an impressive showing by Baylor that I think they're going to top Kansas later in the week here. So those are the two games I kind of circled. Kansas. I think Marquette will take care of Creighton at 2:30 on Saturday. That's another one. Florida, South Carolina, 3:30. That's another tight game here. One of those teams that you said, these sort of SEC games are really going to come critical kind of down the stretch here because one of them is going to be in a way better position than another, and it may come down to just one of these simple matchups. And then the prayer on Saturday night, Michigan State at Purdue. It's
at Mackey. That's going to be tough.
We've never taken the easy way. Like you said, Izzo is a March guy. This could be one of those starts of just like it doesn't make any sense, but it seems like magic when it works.
What is the date on Saturday?
No idea.
March 2nd. That's all you need to know. March.
Oh, so the win percentage goes up. You're right. All right. So the tick of the month.
Yeah.
Suddenly, all the analytics make sense. All right. Okay. Cool. I'm all in. Completely sold.
See, now you're understanding.
The next
thing
you
have to do is just not lose in March, and then you're gonna be good. That's gonna be your mindset. You got to make it to the tournament, and you just can't lose in March. If you don't lose in March, you're in the Final Four. Boom, easy.
Speaking of not losing in March, that would be great for these bet consequences that we got to get rolling a little bit here. Unfortunately, the remaining consequence of last year, which has already been delayed a year, is I guess in jeopardy to some degree. Can we blame it on global warming, or is this just negligent planning by us? Because we might not have any snow by next week. Like, very likely the whole East Coast is getting a massive heat wave right now that this shirtless ski down, which is last year's consequence that I have to do, may not be as punishing as it could be, and I don't know how to avoid it. I have no idea how to go around it at this point, because if it's just not going to be cold, we have to do it, and whatever we do is just going to be it. But it's certainly not, I think, what we ever envisioned, and maybe we'll get a cold day. Maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe we could just add some special effects, and I'll have some AI stuff, just add some snow. But we do need to get the ball rolling a little bit on future consequences of what we think this year's should be. I'm still proposing, and the only real idea that I've come up with is that the other person, the loser, would have to host some sort of dinner party. I'm thinking some sort of like Thanksgiving in June sort of thing, but don't take that exactly. You could play with whatever theme you want, but the idea of having everyone over, planning some sort of meal, and entertaining them for an afternoon or a night of some form. I don't really have much
How
else.
many people?
I wrote down 8 people minimum, 15 max.
Okay. I was trying to figure that part out, because it's like, well, yeah, like can't just have like 2 people.
Totally
it's
up,
like,
totally up for discussion.
It's like, yeah, kind of. Okay.
But I
This
think
is good, because all of mine are pretty much half baked at this point. It's just like a jumping off point.
Well, this is that show right now, because that's where we're at. We got to come up with an idea soon. As you said, it's gonna be March next week, and this bet would ideally be locked in sooner rather than later. Seeing how we've taken our time with the last couple of years of nothing seasonal, all right? Just nothing limited with that anymore, right? That seems to not be our benefit. But what do you got then? What are the half-baked ideas?
All right, so the first one, like I said, all these are pretty half baked, so nothing set in stone. Just looking, throwing stuff against the wall, see what sticks. We redo an old consequence. We just put all the old consequences in a bag, and then you pull one out, and that's what you have to do.
This seems like a sick trick to get me to play basketball again, because a lot of them were blank, blank, blank as you play basketball.
Well, I didn't even think about that, but yes, you're right. Next one, also basketball related. Certain number of free throws made in a row / total. I wasn't sure if it would be like if you added up all the differences in all the games, if you had to make that many free throws, like would that be a lot? Would that not be a lot? So still, like I said, that's a half-baked. We kind of talked about this one last year, stealing this from the part of my take guys, the bowling contest, where you got to bowl a 300, which is obviously impossible for us, but it's like every hot dog that you eat, every beer that you have, it like lowers the score and makes it a little bit easier. So as you go along, you get a better chance so it's all right. You don't have to bowl a 300. You only have to bowl a 250, and then all right, now it's only a 200, and 8 hours later, okay, all you have to do is get triple digits. I have weird facial hair for all of April. For example, you'd have to have a soul patch. Also stolen from part of my take. This one, I think we almost got in a fight over this one. I couldn't remember exactly where we both fell on it, but you have to go camping for 24 hours. And I believe this one was your idea, but it was if you won, that there were just no more consequences.
I also had that written down still. If I win, I get to just delay all consequences. If we could do it for a year, it doesn't even need to be forever. I would love for it to be forever. I'm ready to get over this. I'm too old for this stuff. I can't come up with any more ideas. I thought it would be intriguing for the listeners to see some sort of consequence annually, us just doing something silly, as well as just physically seeing how we're just a vocal podcast. There is no video aspect to it, and I don't really care to advertise anymore. All right, you either like us and listen, or you don't. Like, subscribe, thanks. Like that's where I'm at. I don't know who we're doing this for anymore. Is really what I'm at. Like it's already consequence enough just losing to you. Like I don't know if I really need to top it off with something else. Yeah, you're not opposed either.
I hear you. I hear you. I hear all the things you're saying. I guess we could we could entertain that idea and how we'd do like a little swan song on the way out, or maybe it's it's for us. It's not for the audience. So rather than it being something absurd or disgusting or terrible, if it is more of a hey, loser's got to take the winner out to dinner. Loser's got to buy the winner a nice bottle of whiskey. A little more mature. Is that that kind of what you're thinking?
Yeah, or like the house party thing. Planning sucks. Like it's just, even even I'm not really. I've entertained before. I'm not worried about the cooking of it all, but it's a lot of work. It's a ton of work. I think that's the real consequence of all this. So that's it's socializing. I think it's the most consequential thing you could probably make me do.
You got to clean beforehand. You got to clean afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's effort. It's definitely a consequence. All right, well, that seems like we got the ball rolling enough here that we got something to go through, and I'm sure if you have any ideas, you can submit them to the podcast. Let us know. You can let me or Zach know. You can reach us on our Facebook page or our Twitter page, little column A, little column B. And you can reach Zach on his Twitter X page, which is
Wicked Z-Man 24.
All right, is that it for college? Move along here.
Yep.
Let's give these professionals a shot here, where they have some silly announcements.
Just as we're transitioning over, I mean, there's a certain level of last week. You were very upset about the All-Star weekend because the players don't care, and so kind of by extension, the fans don't care. And then on the other side, we have college, where we literally some people are calling it a problem because the fans are so excited they're running on the court. It's like, wouldn't the NBA love to be having to deal with this problem rather than the problems that they're dealing with?
No, I would hate it. It's fine where it's at. I don't want to see.
I don't mean literally running onto the court. Like, nope, the NBA, they're dealing with fans already too close. But I just mean the general excitement level.
I think if you walk on the court from an NBA fan perspective, and there's NBA guys on there, they have the right to hit you, and you're in way more jeopardy of a large physical human being really putting you in some actual danger. I can't support it in any way, but yeah, I mean it's a different sport. I'm all for it. Okay, I get the difference. There's an energy with it all, and it's appropriate over there. It doesn't. I don't think that would really enhance the NBA. You really think it'd be like that much better?
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying equal 1-to-1 of allow court storming in the NBA. These are multimillionaires. Like, just no, that would. I just mean the general, like, the excitement level that fans are so excited to go to a college game, and that the NBA is like, they're doing this in-season tournament. They're doing a play-in tournament. Like, they're trying to like steal some of like the college basketball ness of it, where like I said, where we're coming off of, it's just so close. Of they had an All-Star weekend that less and less people are going to watch every year if that's the product they continue to put out.
Is the SEC like the Western Conference? Is that what you're saying? Where seeds 1 through 7 are just 7 games apart. Seeds 1 through 8 are 7 games apart. While on the East Coast, the Celtics have a 7.5 lead over second place. It's a tale of two conferences here. The West is so tight and such a conference there. You know, we mentioned the play-in tournament where, you know, if you're ranked within the top 10, you're going to have a chance to make the playoffs. In the West right now, it's not even going to be a race to the play-in game. It's going to be a race to get out of the play-in game. Who's going to be the 5-6 seed, and who's going to have to play the Lakers and Warriors just to get into the playoffs, to then only get rewarded with playing, you know, one of the top seeds anyway. So uphill battle.
Well, you say that, but right now it's the Lakers or the Warriors. It wouldn't be both of them because they're 9-10 right now. So they'd play the first game, and one of those teams would be out immediately. So unless something changes, and for sure something could change, the Warriors have looked much better coming out of the All-Star break. But I think that's some of the wild part too, is the play-in right now being the Pelicans, the Mavericks, the Lakers, and the Warriors.
I wouldn't want to play the Lakers or the Warriors unless I was.
Who would you rather play? If you, let's say they get up and they were to make it, one of them would make it to the 8th seed. So, well, I guess these are all tied south. Yeah, I guess you can pick which team you want to be and which team you want to play.
I would want to play the Pelicans. The Luka matchup of one single game terrifies me.
But the Pelicans have a 3.5. Like, you think they lose twice at home?
To those teams, yeah. I think they
didn't mention how another Duke star was also violently assaulted last week. It wasn't just Flip. Zion. Kevin Love tried to tackle him. tried to end his career. That's not good
don't
talk.
do that.
Started
Don't
started a
stop.
whole brawl.
Slow.
5 suspensions.
Nobody even knows who you're talking about. All right, they've never even heard of this guy. He never plays. It's irrelevant and it's completely misled.
Sure seems like he's playing all the time, and people can't even stop him from doing anything. He had some big blocks last week.
It's very exciting when he plays. I won't say anything more than that. It just would be lying.
Can I say one more thing about Zion? It's actually Zion tangentially, and then we can go back to the standings.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So the Suns are 1 game ahead of them. That's the team that has the hardest schedule remaining.
No, they're tied.
Right now.
They're tied right now, right?
They're tied. They're
three-way tie. Yeah, 3-way tie.
They have the hardest remaining schedule. So whatever
the Pelicans do.
No, the Suns.
Oh, the Suns do.
The Suns have the hardest remaining schedule.
That's not good because they are pretty injury prone.
Yep. They have the hardest remaining schedule for sure. They're going to play pretty much the teams that they're only like the easier games they're going to have are like the teams 3 games below them. It's like the Mavericks, the Warriors, and the Lakers are the easiest teams that they're going to play on schedule, of which that's not to their benefit at all. Like they could easily take care of business of all that, but every other game is a superior team. Or on the road, they have no gimmies and they have no time, and I think that they're going to end up in the playing game. It seems inevitable just based on their schedule challenge alone. Assuming everyone else stays where they're at. If there's an injury to any of these other teams and they become significantly worse, that can certainly benefit them. But that's going to be a challenge for them.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the 7-game spread between 1 and 8, but I think you can really even divvy it up into the 4 teams at the top within 3 games. Then you have the 4 teams below that within a half a game of each other, and then even below that, then you could go with get basically just the Lakers and the Warriors that are 3+ games behind that, and they're all kind of like in those sections. There's really not that many games left, so like to overcome like a 3 or 4 point or 3-game lead, it doesn't seem like much, but it kind of is without some sort of major injury.
I mean, I got the Suns schedule up here. Then the next 2 games. It's a home and away with the Rockets. Should hopefully take care of business there. It's home to the Thunder. It's at the Nuggets. It's home to the Raptors, who are a little bit more reduced now than they were earlier. It's home to the Celtics. It's at the Cavaliers. It's at the Celtics. It's at Charlotte. I'll give you that one. It's at Milwaukee.
Talk about Charlotte's rejuvenated. Were they 4-1 since the trade deadline?
Shout out Grant. It's
right
home against the Sixers, who by March 20th, just maybe that's the Sixers team that's a little bit better with that guy, that Joel Embiid guy back. That's hopefully going to be the case there, but otherwise, that's not a great one.
I don't think he's going to be back by then, but maybe.
Home to Atlanta, home and away against the Spurs, at the Nuggets, at the Thunder, at the Pelicans, home to Cavs, home to Timberwolves. Like none of these games.
There's not a lot of gimmies in there.
There's no gimmies in here, as well as all these other teams that I'm talking about are like 1 or 2 games ahead or behind or near them, and they're not going to want to blow any of these games. Like it's going to change the Western Conference rankings every game. So, like in some way, it's in their own hands. But this is certainly a hard hand to have to play, and I think they're going to be the one that drops down. So maybe New Orleans doesn't even have to worry about anything that I'm talking right now. I'm not in love with that New Orleans team. It's fun to see Zion play, and I hope he's healthy. There's still a kind of a what if wow factor that could easily happen, but I'm not in love with the way that team's constructed, especially in comparison to the team surrounding them. I still like the Kings. I like the Kings a lot more, the Clippers a lot more, Thunder more, Nuggets more, Timberwolves more, and maybe some of the teams below them as well, but. That's just me. Well, you had a Zion thing you wanted to take, and I just kind of didn't let you have it, but I'll let you have it. Did you lose it?
That's that he's been playing well recently, and he has been on the court. And I guess not a rivalry because he doesn't know who I am, but I listen to the Ringer guys and Big Waz. I just feel like the whole time he's negative about pretty much everybody. It's like there's 1 or 2 players or teams he chooses like a week that he will just almost more be neutral about, and then everyone else is just trash and like the worst thing he's ever seen and laughs about it. And I feel, was one of the tips of the spear of the Zion is fat and terrible and all these negative things. And then now that Zion's been playing better, he said, "Oh yeah, well Zion's in shape. Like he's he's spelt now. He's looking good." It's like I cannot like how could you look at an athlete and like be able to tell like that their weight is better from last month to this month? I can't imagine it's changed like at all. Especially like it's like they're wearing jerseys. Like you can't and so it's mostly anti Big Waz and just couldn't believe that he did like this 180 of just like, oh well, he's in shape now and just like, oh well now he looks good. It's like if you took two pictures, you would not be able to tell the difference in which one was from January or which one was from December and which one was from February. Just made me upset.
I would be shocked if the Pelicans played a home game, and I don't think they'll be able to advance out of the first round on the road. So they're.
Oh, when I was saying home, I meant playing game home.
Yeah, I mean that's. Yeah, we'll see.
But they really shouldn't be. I mean, let's say it went chalk right now, and they got the 7th seed. I mean, the 7th seed's really not supposed to be the 2 seed. I mean, it happened last year with the Lakers catching the Grizzlies. But I would say, I mean, if you go back, I don't think the expectations would be, oh well, the Pelicans, well they made the playoffs, they're supposed to win from the 7 spot. So I think just even them making the playoffs and moving in that direction, I think is good for them.
Cool. Then why do we spend so much time talking about a team that's not even that good? Because Zion's on it.
I think we were talking about all the teams.
No, we were. They're not really a threat. So this idea that Zion's supposed to have these expectations still, it's like, well, sure, but like they change, and I don't think it's fair to have those expectations with him anymore. It's nice to see him playing. That's all I'm going to leave it at. It's crazy to think that this team's going to go anywhere.
Well, not this year, but we'll see.
All right, let's switch to the other conference where I think the more intriguing thing is Atlanta right now, where Trae Young is going to be out. He's going to be out for quite some time. And we both talked about it and kind of came to the conclusion almost immediately, not even together, like just kind of the same feeling. Like, what if they're like a lot better without Trae? And the offseason is like, all right, we have what we have right now. We'll find something, and then we're just going to move on from this guy. Like I don't think it's wild. Like you didn't think that was wild either. Like how they're 10 seed right now. I'm not saying
they're not going to make the playoffs.
You don't think Atlanta's going to make the playoffs?
No.
Well, you don't think they're going to be in the play-in game?
I think without Trae that they're going to fall out. I think Brooklyn or the Raptors will catch them, but either way, I just don't see them winning 2 games to get into the playoffs.
I think they could pass Chicago and be a 9 seed and then win in the play-in and then lose as an 8 seed inevitably. I could see them taking down someone like Orlando. I'm not in love with Trae. I thought he'd be a lot better. I still think they have a really good coach, and I think if you allow that coach to actually coach a team, which Trae I think is pretty much, I'm saying this nicely, is uncoachable.
It's a specific style that he has to play, and he's a smaller guy. So your defense, as good as he is on offense, the defense has to balance it out, and you have to do special things.
I think Atlanta's going to be better off. I think they're going to go on a bit of a tear.
What was Trae's injury? I know is he out for 4 weeks, or will be reevaluated in 4 weeks?
I think he was reevaluated.
Yeah, that's not good. I would guess that he's not going to play again this year.
It's a left hand surgery.
I guess you could stay in shape, so you don't have to worry about that. I just don't think so. I think they're going to be so far down, and he is their most expensive asset. I think this is a shut it down. Don't even try to rush him back. We're not going to try to do anything crazy for you to play in the play-in game, basically.
All right, Celtics time. I mentioned they got a 7.5 game lead. They've been playing
an 8-game win streak.
Great, all great stuff. The headline that I keep seeing is both like pro and anti Tatum. There's he could be in the MVP conversation, and yet I don't think anyone's taking him serious for it. It could be him being very, very focused on going for a championship and saying, once I get this, then they'll start considering for all that, which is probably correct. And then there's also like the back of his mind that I think he knows if he wanted to be putting up massive numbers, he could be. And he just doesn't because he wants to win the game, and he knows the only way they're going to win this championship is if they play a certain way. So in some ways, I think he's being punished for doing the right thing and not necessarily getting the reward that he wants. But I think we're still on a real good pace to him getting that championship. I mean, we've had a whole lot of success with this guy. I think we've talked. I don't know if we did this even on the podcast or it was just through our messaging throughout the week of, how many of these past playoff series was the Celtics really supposed to win outside of that Miami one last year, which was so painful and such a mess. I don't think there was any chance of us beating Golden State in the finals. You go even farther. Game 7 against the Cavs, it was a miracle we were even in that game. Like, these are very, very overachieving successes that I think are being very overlooked now. And now it's win or go home all in this year, sure. But I think that he still does have a chance of actually being the face of the league. And it just got to keep winning. Just got to actually get a real one. And I don't think you can really pick apart. I think he's got as strong of a resume as you could say anyone who doesn't have a championship could get at this point. And he's 25.
Best player on the best team right now. He has had some dud games in the playoffs, but like you said, he's 25. If you're gonna go look, just a lot of guys his age have not played this many playoff games. And I would say on the flip side, he's had some absolute gems. The Sixers game 7 last year, where he scored 50 points. Like, that's not happening all the time. Like, that takes a really special person and player to be able to put up those sorts of numbers in a win in the most one of the highest pressure games. And yeah, the Heat series, we knew as soon as the playoffs started, when the play-ins were going, I was like, we don't want to play the Heat. We don't want to play the Heat, and we avoided them early on, but then we had to play them later. And I think we've made adjustments this year, and the Jays are the same, but the rest of the core of this team is very different. And I think that we are in a much better spot than we have been in previous years. Like you said, we are 7.5 games ahead of the number 2 seed, and we're 5 games ahead of the next closest team in the entire league. We have a double-digit point differential, which leads us to who easy guess. Who plays the most minutes for the Celtics?
Derek White?
No, it's Tatum. He's only averaging 36 minutes a game. And I think that Mazzulla, for all the in-game stuff we want to give him a hard time about, I think he's been doing an excellent job of managing the load management. These guys get rest pretty frequently. We've done on the back-to-backs that Al plays one game, Porzingis plays the other game, and I think if we continue to do that, especially with this much of a lead, we should be going into these playoffs like the most healthy, like out of anyone, and like out of any year in the past. I think it's just going to come down to we've gotten tripped up in the playoffs. Our offense has looked stagnant at times, and is that the coach's fault? Is that the player's fault? We got to figure that out. And just when this becomes playoff and not regular season, do we run into those problems again? And I don't mean to kind of keep bringing this back to college, but it's just going to be like Purdue. Great regular season team this past couple of years, but when they get into the tournament and they get crushed, and we're not even getting crushed in the first round. I mean, we're making it deep. I take us over the Sixers all day long, but if we don't do it in the playoffs, the people are going to come back. They're going to continue with their chirping. We need to have this dominance that we're having in the regular season in the playoffs this year.
I just don't want Tatum to change the course he's on at all. The numbers are down this year. I don't want that. I don't want anyone to even talk about him taking a step back. If anything, I think that's a massive step forward of some maturity and a lot of other things that he's doing out there that aren't going to show up in the stat board. Playing different positions defensively has been a big thing this year. Porzingis certainly helps all that, but it's also given him a whole lot of extra flexibility that I think he's really stepped up to, and that's not going to show up in the stat sheet. And that, even leading the team in minutes, his stats aren't going to be the same. None of the guys' stats are going to be the same. This is Drew's worst season at all. He's made a whole bunch of sacrifices, and yet I still think he's as hungry as ever out there. And defensively, I can't wait to see this team actually lock down defensively and take it all seriously for a game, let alone a series. I'm all right with everything, but the idea of him talking about being the face of the league, it's like, just stay on the track you're on, and you'll get there.
Yeah,
Jokic doesn't want it.
that yeah, that was an interesting interview, but I think he said all of the right things. Where sometimes you just come across a headline, it's like, wait, Tatum just say this out of nowhere? It's like, oh no, he was in an interview, and this was a specific question he was asked. It's like, what is he supposed to say? Like, no, I think I'm the sixth best player. It's like, no, all those guys, they're like, yeah, every time I step on the court, I'm the best. Like, absolutely. And like the whole face of the league thing, that's not something that Tatum has to be concerned about. That's something that Adam Silver has to be concerned about. The marketing department has to be concerned about. That's not Tatum's job at all. Tatum's job is to win basketball games for the Celtics. That's what he can focus on. And I very much agree with you. If you win and you win championships, you become more recognizable, you get talked about more, you become more popular, and you gather more and more fans, or if they're not fans, haters, like just you occupy more people's more space in people's minds.
I just worry. This is the only real thing we're in jeopardy of. Is that, like I said, it's already a successful resume as is. If he doesn't get any, and there's a whole lot of almost and close attempts, it's going to look like a bunch of wasted opportunities. But the reality of looking back at all of them in detail, he wasn't supposed to be in any of those. Like, they're all like very overachieving, successful moments still. And I just, if they don't get it done this year, I don't want to look back at any of it and be like, yeah, complete failure. It was like, no. It was. This would be the only.
He pushed LeBron to a Game 7 as a rookie.
Yeah, no, that's but that's
we weren't even supposed to be close to that.
But if that's where we're starting the bar is what I'm saying. It's already incredibly high. Like that's the rookie year. Is just like, all right, Game 7, almost a chance to go to the finals against a team that was probably not even supposed to advance out of one round, let alone that far.
Right, with no Kyrie and no Hayward.
Of which that season completely sabotaged in the first 2 minutes of the season. It's a whole lot of what ifs of all of it, but I like the direction we're at. I like the way we play basketball, and I'm very critical of Mazzulla, as you said, but it's going pretty well, and he's setting some records as well right now. Where he's only coached a year and a half, and outside of the disaster of Miami last year, it's been a pretty successful team. Like they have a ton of wins. Like, it's absurd the amount of wins he has. For as critical as everyone is of him, including me, like I get it. Like, he could just come back at me and be like, "Well, I've won this many games. Is there anyone else that's done that?" And over the last 2 years, not many, not that many. Short list.
Do you have any concern that right now Miami is tied with the Magic as the 7th and 8th seed? So if things went chalk. I guess technically I think they're a little bad, but we might have to play Miami in the first round. How concerned are you that might happen?
It's 10 out of 10. It's like, why would I continue to doubt this team? They're the team that if you doubt them, you're going to lose to them. If you come in not doubting them, you're going to have a better chance against them. They haven't exactly figured out the Scary Terry thing, and I think that trade again reflects a lot more of a threat in the playoffs than it does right now. But it doesn't matter. It's like, who's going to turn on for the Miami Heat this year? Is it going to be Jaquez this year that's the guy that just catches fire? Is Martin going to come back to life like he did last year?
I don't know.
Look, the Lakers.
Like these guys.
The Lakers would love for Gabe Vincent to show up for them. He hasn't even played a game. Like, that would be nice. These are all guys that killed us last year that haven't even been relevant since those games.
Unreal 3-point shooting performances.
I'm still terrified of them. I'm scared of the Knicks too. I know we took care of business and they're banged up, but there's a world where the Knicks have a very similar formula to what Miami beat us with last year. I just hard nosed, grind it out, going to make your life very difficult. Physical team that can close out some games and really put some pressure on you. I think they have the formula of being very similar.
Maybe like at their absolute peak, and for sure they had a nice little run, and maybe it's because of the injuries, but it just that they haven't sustained it.
The injuries have been brutal, though. You can't incorporate new guys, lose some key guys, and lose some of the new guys. It's like you trade it away and you get anything back in exchange. When OG's not there, it's not like, oh, well, we just added him and we didn't give up anything. So you gave up some stuff, and you got him in exchange. I know they got a couple other pieces, but I don't think Burks and Bogdanovich were really going to be this relied on in the long run. So,
I'm not saying that they don't have it and that the injuries aren't playing a factor. Just it was just such a short window where they did get everyone, and it's just like, oh, yep, they were really good, but it was a small burst, and it's like, all right, let's see when they come back and see, was that burst real, or was that just a nice little run that they had.
I'd rather play the Cavaliers over anybody. I'm still not very scared of them. Whatever the Knicks did to them last year, I can't unsee. So even when I see them having a very successful, they're the 2 seed right now in the East, and I'm bashing them based on something that happened months ago, because it was more than just losing a series. It was a domination. It was a broken spirit of a team that played a certain way and then just could no longer play that way. So I'm just not sold on them. I don't think they've solved any of the problems that they had last year, and I think the second we hit the playoffs, all those problems come right back, where they got to make up their mind of this Mobley Allen combination, or they're going to be benching one of them, and I don't know if that's necessarily the right answer either. If you have both these guys and they can't be on the floor together, maybe you're better off with someone else that could be on the floor with one of them. It's a very weird situation to be in, but it's one where I no matter how successful the Cleveland is, I'm not going to buy anything until they win a first round matchup. Like I'm much more scared of the Knicks than I am Cleveland. Would you agree?
I don't know. I hear everything that you're saying, but it's just, I don't know. There's something about, like, it's the Knicks, It's just,
This isn't
they
the
haven't been
normal Knicks.
scary in a long time. I hear you, but then it's like, are they actually going to get healthy?
I mean, Cleveland was healthy last. Health concern for everybody. It's also the Milwaukee at some point is going to actually get into a rhythm. I imagine they can only suck for so many games for so long before the talent just comes through of this team and is like, all right, yeah, guys, I don't care who's coaching. I don't care what the last game is. We have Giannis and Dame. We should win a little bit more, and then that'll happen.
Julius Randle just seems so hot and cold. So when he comes back with these new guys, does it work, or is it just the guy that we've seen it at times where it's just, man, like, what is this guy doing out here? But then he has other times where this is the leader of the team. Like, how is no one talking about him?
I think there's even less pressure on him.
Which one they're going to get.
There's even less pressure on him this year, though. That if he doesn't have it, which is a frequent thing we've seen, I think he has a little bit more of a supporting cast, that they have some alternative lineups to play. I don't think they need to be nearly as reliant on him. I think they want to be, but like you said, there's just going to be some games he just doesn't have it, whether it's foul trouble or he's just a little slower offensively. And it's not like he really stretches the floor. They can go out there with a whole bunch of shooting and not play him. Or make him play big. And now he's your center. Like, just go crazy small ball or something. I think he can be flexed out into different positions, and the scoring that you need from him can be harvested a little bit more from Burks and Bogdanovich than they could have done previously. Hopefully. All right, you got anything else for the NBA?
Did you see the whole Clippers rebrand? Did you have any thoughts on that?
I like the uniforms. I thought the colors looked good. I thought the logo was fine. I'm much more intrigued by the actual arena, the stadium, and the behind the free throw lines and the efforts.
What is it? The wall? What are they calling it? The wall? It's the wall of something.
Something like that. I'm more intrigued to see how that's going to look and play out. And you wanted a little bit more of a college atmosphere. This seems like they're getting a little bit more creative with having some fun in the crowd. And I'm just intrigued on what a ton of money gets you in a modern arena that's been thought of and dreamed about for so long. And is it happening?
It's gonna be cool. They had to share the Staples Center crypto now with the Lakers for a long time. They've continually been a snake bitten franchise. Some would say it's karma coming back with their owner, but I think it's cool that with Steve Ballmer buying the team, it makes total sense. If you're going to a new arena, just now's the time. A complete, hey, we're redoing everything. We're stepping into a new era. I thought it was weird that's announced now. This seems like perfect off-season content. Hey, check it out, uniforms. I thought the uniforms, they look a lot like the Wizards, But it's like, hey, it's different coasts. Not a huge deal there. They already had similar colors. There's only so many colors and combinations, so not a huge deal there. The logo, where it's not the letters, the L and the C, and now it's looks like a big cruise ship. Pretty much forgot that Clippers stood for a like clipper, like a ship. Just because I don't feel like they've used any sort of boating imagery. I can't even think of like who their mascot is, but like it's not a boat. It's just one of those. Like I said, they're a snake bitten franchise. When I think of a Clipper, my immediate thought isn't a boat. My immediate thought is had some good runs, but just like terrible endings, and just in general, like bad franchise. Like that's a Clipper.
All right, my first thought, they reveal this, or at least I see it on Instagram, and there's 3 different versions of the uniform. There's the home, away, and the alternate, right? And and the 3 players they have for it are Kawhi, Paul George, and James Harden. The first thing I noticed was, why the hell is James Harden in the middle? And is this just like, did they get a bad pose from each person, and the James one was the only one that looked good in the middle, or what are we doing here? I don't I just so anti James Harden that it's like, can I just hit him in some way or another? Like, you shouldn't even be in the middle. Just put him over there to the side. Put Kawhi in the middle. Put Paul George in the middle. This guy's been here for months, and we're going to put him in the middle.
You think the middle is the premier spot?
You don't think it is? If they're throwing all 3 guys in a there's 1 guy in the middle and 2 guys on each side, you don't think James should?
When I saw that, I really didn't overthink it, and I think we took our shots when he went over there, and they lost a bunch of games in a row. But now they're doing much better. So I think I can't say all the jokes that I had before.
Well, hopefully those 2 don't have egos over there, and that everyone's all right. Actually, maybe this was the only way to not hurt anyone's ego, was to put James in the middle, because he's the only one who's sensitive enough to be like, well, I'm not the centerpiece. Like, Kawhi doesn't care. He already knows he's the alpha. And Paul George, he's been riding the coattails of Kawhi now for quite some time, saying, like, this is great. I don't need to stress a whole lot of other stuff, and I just show up and play. Maybe this was the right move. Maybe I'm overreading it.
He is a free agent at the end of the season.
All right, let's get out of here. Last topic here. You wrote down MLB uniforms. Are we really going to talk baseball in February? I mean, I know we don't have any snow and it's warm outside, but we're going to do baseball?
Have you seen the uniforms?
No, I have. It's February. I don't even care about baseball when the season starts. Why would I care now?
All right. Okay. Well, you might you might be interested. So, Nike is the one that designs the uniforms, and then they have a deal with Fanatics, and I believe Fanatics is the one that actually makes the uniforms. So there's been some changes from last year, and initially when this came out, they were taking pictures, and the quality definitely looked worse. But, you're just looking at pictures, and I was seeing some complaints, and I was like, all right, yes, these are different, but this is just a typical case of, hey, these uniforms are not the same as before, this has changed, people hate change. I kind of wrote it off. Like, in a few weeks when the season starts, this will all be, no one's even going to notice that the stitching's a little different. But I guess it kind of looked like, the cheap version that you get where, the patch isn't sewed on, it's ironed on. So you're all right. So maybe there's some more problems. Well, now more recently, the real issue is that the pants are see-through. That seems like a pretty big problem. There's been some rather graphic pictures of different angles that have been going around, but you would think once you reach, the major leagues, your pants would not be see-through. So yeah, it seems like right now, baseball, Fanatics, Nike, everyone is trying to tell people, hey, everything's fine. Don't worry about it. Nothing to see here. But it sure seems like, yes, there is quite something to see here. And I don't know. Maybe this is a new marketing direction that the MLB is going in as they're losing viewers.
I have nothing. I got nothing to comment on this. This is a disaster. I need to get out of this podcast. The other thing is they have so limited fans. You could say they have only fans. That's really where this all stuff belongs.
Heyo.
Yeah, let's get out of here. I don't care about baseball. This is a ridiculous story. Perhaps they did this to stir up a little bit of buzz. Is that possible?
That's very possible.
Is this
very possible.
Is this a futuristic smart thinking for a league that generally doesn't get a whole lot of attention, now getting a whole bunch of attention, albeit attention for different reasons that are so unrelated to the sport. Please subscribe. Little Column A, Little Column B, where you get all the sneak peeks. Anything else from you?
Go Seas.
We'll be back.
Little column A, little column B.